Okay, let's keep reading Last Gamer Standing. We're up to chapter 9. The tournament had me so physically and mentally exhausted. My heart threatened to shatter into a million pieces, but I knew what I had to do. I turned on my monitor screen and dialed my home number. It picked up on the 4th ring. My father stared at me from the living room. I'd clearly caught him right after work because he was still wearing a blue dress shirt and black work pants. Reyna, Baba, I finished the 2nd round of the tournament. I made it through to the 3rd round. Oh, my father didn't sound that surprised, but he didn't sound that happy either. His expression was stoic. As usual, I might have just told him the weather. Good job. Wow, I was so taken aback by Bubba's rare compliment. Taken aback by Bubba's rare compliment, I almost forgot to reply. Thanks. Where's Mama? She's sleeping. She gets tired easily these days. Bubba paused. You're still coming home, right? I can call the commander to pull you out of the academy and I can drive you home tomorrow. You'll make it in time for your mother's surgery. I squeezed my eyes shut. For some reason, an image of Nell's and Henry's smiling faces appeared in my mind, and a lump formed in my throat. My friends, they still had no idea about anything that was going on with me. Was this really going to be goodbye? Leaving gamer school is definitely for the best, Bubba was saying. Gaming is, well, it isn't well suited for people like us. People like us? People who aren't white. That much was already obvious to me, even though I'd only been watching and playing Dayhold for a few years. Even though I got that Bubba wanted to protect me, I couldn't help but feel annoyed, but I didn't know what to say back. After all, he was right. Bubba's eyebrows knitted together with concern. If you come home quickly, we can still sign you up for math camp too. You can get ahead of your classmates for the upcoming school year. Math camp, I shuddered. Was there anything worse? Gaming is also too dangerous for a girl like you. Annoyance spiked in me. How many times had I heard a version of those words since I'd started playing Dayhold? My eyes flickered back towards the posters of Lucky Jade 847 and Moonshine on my wall. There weren't many pro female gamers, but they did exist, and they were so talented. They were my heroes. When I'd first showed a love for gaming a few years back, Mama had gone out and spent precious dollars on these posters of female gamers. She'd printed out newspaper articles about Lucky Jade 847 and Moonshine for me to read too. Remembering this made me ache terribly for my mother. Out of my parents, she'd been the more understanding of my love for Dayhold. Wait a minute. Bubba wanted me to come home to be there while my mother's illness worsened. He wanted me to be there for the surgery, but he'd never told me what Mama wanted. Somehow, deep in my heart, I already knew what my mother would want me to do, even though she was ill. And I had a feeling that if my Dayhold heroes had been in my shoes, they'd do the same thing too. Dayhold is too violent for a young girl to play, and you're wrong, I blurted out without thinking. Silence. Uh-oh. I'd never talked back to Bubba like that before. He was definitely going to let me have it now. Reyna! My father shouted, sounding aghast. But suddenly I realised I didn't have to listen to my father like the good girl I'd always been. I didn't have to leave the academy and go home. It wasn't like my parents were paying my tuition to the academy. That money came from the scholarship that I'd earned using my gaming skills. What's all the noise? Is Reyna calling? Bubba and I both glanced behind him, where my mother had come into the living room. She'd clearly just woken up. Her hair was still in its curlers, and she wore the plain grey nightgown. Go back to sleep, Bubba said, trying to wave off my mother, but she dodged him and came up close to the video screen. Mama, shouldn't you be resting? I asked. Don't you have your surgery this weekend? My mother flashed a smile, but she couldn't disguise the exhaustion in her features. I'm all right, Balbay. The doctor is hopeful I'll have the strength to pull through. Seeing Mama appear so weak made me rethink. Maybe I should be there for her. After all, even if it meant missing the tournament. That's good. I should be there for your surgery. I should see if I can get out of camp somehow. No, Runa. I blinked. What? I don't want you to worry about me. In fact, I forbid it. A cough. I heard my father's worried voice start to say something to Mama, but she spoke over him. You have to concentrate on your gaming. You've worked so hard to attend this camp. But Mama, Bubba said, I know what your father thinks, but I'm the one who's sick, so I get the final word. My mother's voice grew sharper, some of the energy restored to her words. I'm going to do my best. You have to do your best at camp. Promise me, Runa. My throat was closing up, but I managed to choke out, I promise, Mama. Runa! Bubba's face popped up close to the screen again. Don't listen to your mother. It's your responsibility as our daughter to come back home now to be with your family. Do you hear me? You shouldn't be discouraging Runa's dreams, Mama shouted. My mind was made up. Bubba, listen to me. I'm not going home. My voice shook, but I forced the words out before I could change my mind. What are you talking about? Bubba demanded. I gulped, trying to stay strong. It was already too late to turn back. Opposing my father was scarier than facing down 100 enemies in Dayhold, but I had to do it. I'm doing really well in this tournament. I'm enjoying my classes too. Girls can game well. I'll show you. I'm going to win this tournament. Mama's right. We both have to do our best. At my words, Mama's smile widened, and I knew I'd made the right choice. Do whatever you want, my father said, but his voice sounded so detached and cold it frightened me. But know that if you don't come home now, don't expect to come home ever. With a beep, he hung up the phone. I was left to listen to that horrible, horrible silence. Shaking, I put the phone down. A small part of me, the obedient Reyna, who'd always done her best to please both of her parents, screamed that I'd just made the worst mistake of my life. But a bigger part of me, the Reyna who loved gaming and wanted to prove herself to the world, was even louder. That part of me said I'd done what was necessary. I just hoped that part of me was right. Chapter 10. We had another day of break before the third round of the tournament. It was Liam's birthday, and a few days ago he'd invited Henry, Nell, and me to play games and eat cake with him in the commons area. As it turned out, he'd also invited a bunch of other kids and even some of the upperclassmen. Most I've only vaguely recognised from class or in the hall. Being around this many strangers was nerve-wracking. I tried to enjoy the party, but I found I couldn't really get into the mood. In the back of my mind, I was constantly thinking about the explosive conversation I'd had with my parents. We hadn't spoken since last night. Every time I thought of my family, dread knotted my stomach. And then, when I did manage to stop thinking about that awful fight, I still had the third round of the tournament to worry about. To Reyna, hello, is anyone there? Someone was tapping my shoulder. I shook my head to clear it and had to take a moment to remember where I was, sitting on a big purple sofa in the commons room, surrounding my classmates. I turned and locked gazes with Nell, who was staring at me in concern. There was chocolate frosting smeared on his lips. You've got a little something here, I told him, pointing at the corner of my lips. Looking embarrassed, Nell quickly swiped at the frosting with a napkin. You good? You've been zoning out like all afternoon, and we're not even in Professor Kumar's class, he joked. I let out a half-hearted laugh. Yeah, I'm fine, just feeling a little tired is all. I was sick about Mama, and I wasn't close enough to anyone here to confide in them. I told Henry about Mama's surgery being on the same day as the tournament finals, but nobody else knew about what was going on in my family. Been staying up late watching the tournament? Playing in it, actually. Yup, you? Are you kidding me? Course I am. This is only the second tournament the Runar has appeared in, ever. I've got to cheer him on. Nell's enthusiasm brought the first smile to my face in what felt like days. You should focus on your own gaming, doofus. Nell rolled his eyes. Hey, that goes for you too. I've seen some of your moves in class. Me too, said Henry. You're not bad, but you could use some improvement, Reyna. Of course, they only knew my alt account, reigning champ, where I went out of my way to play decently but not too well. If only these guys knew my true skills. Attention, people! Liam stood up on a leather lounge chair and clapped his hands together. Immediately, the 10-ish partygoers turned towards him. He adjusted his birthday hat, which had started to slip down his head. It had the number 12 on it. Time for the main event of my birthday party, Dayhold Free Play. Wait, what? Shouted a girl named Bethany Lewis. Here, now. I don't have my gamer suit, complained Mimi. Are we live streaming? I'm not ready, cried Sanjeet. Frantically patting down his curly brown hair. Does anyone have a mirror? Liam sighed. Calm down, guys. We're just going to play the pitch version of Dayhold. He squinted at the crowd of partygoers and pointed at us each in turn as though counting heads. There are 11 of us in total. I've borrowed 10 pitchers from the community centre, so I guess one of us will have to sit out. I'll sit out, an upperclassman guy I didn't even recognise raised his hand. Perfect. All right, let's do this. Hope you losers are ready to go down, Liam cackled. Please, Liam, I could beat you blindfolded with one arm tied behind my back, shouted Mimi, causing uproarious laughter. Liam frowned at her first, but then even he joined in the laughter too. As if you could beat Liam, scoffed a blue-eyed upperclassman. I recognised him as one of the guys I'd seen trail Felix around the school. You're a girl. Mimi bristled. At the boy's words, a pounding developed in my ears, and I felt my heartbeat quicken in anger. What's your point? Mimi said frostily, though the tone of her voice told us all that she knew exactly what the boy's point was. Francis, Liam coughed. He motioned for the boy to stop talking, but Francis either didn't notice or didn't care. Everyone knows guys are better gamers than girls, Francis said with a nasty smirk. Isn't that right, boys? He looked around for support. The tension in the air was so thick I could almost feel it. A few of the guys nodded, including Henry. I shot him a death glare, and he stopped. Yeah, that's sexist and wrong, Mimi said flatly, and I immediately felt a rush of kinship for the other girl. Francis flushed. We're just as good gamers as you are, maybe even better. Better? Francis snorted. In your dreams? Why don't we prove it with a game of Dayhold then? I said, raising my pitch controller. Somehow I was keeping control of my temper. My parents would have been proud. We'll see if girls can make good gamers. You're on, said Francis. I had to wipe that sneer off his face if it was the last thing I ever did. The stiffness in Mimi's shoulders and her determined expression told me she felt the same. We put up with these insults all the time. Enough. It was time to prove that girl gamers were every bit as capable, if not more, than boy gamers. With a nervous laugh, Liam tried to cut through the thick tension in the air. Hey, guys, let's relax a little and have fun, okay? It's my birthday. His voice faltered when he realised we were all but ignoring him. Everyone took a pitch and set up our systems so that we were all on the same network for the battlefield, which was projected onto a big screen in the community centre. Since we could register with whatever username we wanted, I chose Moonshine #1 Fan. Good choice, Henry said approvingly. Moonshine's the coolest. I shot him a grin. I know, she's one of my heroes. With all the noise we'd been making, we'd drawn a crowd. Even some of the popular kids, including Felix and his friends, had stopped by to see what was happening. Pressure was on. As it turned out, after all his boasting, Liam was knocked out of the game within 5 minutes. What? No fair, I wasn't ready. Let's start over, he said. Sorry, Dayhold rules don't make exceptions, not even for the birthday boy, said Mimi smugly. Soon, Francis threw his pitch down in frustration too. I had just thrown a bomb at him, destroying him instantly. Finally, the last two standing were Mimi and me, our avatars locked in a heated battle. Adrenaline soared in my blood, and in the heat of the moment, I'd even forgotten Francis's words and why I'd been so worked up in the first place. With a well-timed blow of my sword, I struck down Mimi's avatar. "Whoa, you're really good," Nell said, his voice over my shoulder, startling me. I hadn't realised he'd crept so close. "I haven't seen you play like this before." "Oh man, I'm out. You win, Reyna," Mimi groaned a second later, sighing and setting her pitch down. She wiped sweat off her forehead and then shot a self-satisfied smile around at all the boys. "So what was that about girls not being good gamers?" The boys squirmed uncomfortably. Finally, some nervous laughter broke out, and after a few moments, the tension began to leave the room. "Let's play again," Liam shouted. "New rule, nobody is allowed to attack the birthday boy." "You goober, you just want to win," groaned Henry, rolling his eyes. Everyone laughed. For the first time in a long time, I was actually having fun playing Dayhold. There was no stress in playing a casual game at Liam's birthday party, no $10,000 grand prize on the line, and I didn't have to worry about being the Runar, rising star. I could just play for fun without the pressure of being the Runar and winning. No pretending I wasn't skilled. It was the most freeing, wonderful feeling in the world. "Whoa, Reyna, how'd you do that?" I blinked as though coming out of a trance. Nell was staring at the replay on the screen, where my avatar had just feigned defeat and then taken down Henry's. Nell turned his eyes towards me. The only word to describe the expression on his face would be awestruck. "You played like the Runar." Drew in the opponent and pretended to be cornered and then uppercut them. Pow! Nell made an uppercut motion, nearly whacking Sanjeet, who dove out of the way. Just like that. Just like how Professor Lucian taught us in intermediate strategy the other day. Oh no, my heart thudded to a stop in my chest. I hadn't realised Nell or anyone had been watching my gameplay in the tournament so closely that they'd noticed me pulling off similar moves now. I'd been having so much fun, I'd slipped up and forgotten to keep anything that might reveal me to be the Runar strictly under wraps. And other people had been watching too. Had they made the connection between the Runar and me, like Nell had? I was a terrible liar, but I had to try and worm my way out of this. Are you sure that's what you saw, Nell? I stammered. "I know what I saw," Nell insisted. "Wait, Reyna, does that mean you're..." At Nell's words, Henry threw at me a curious gaze. A few of the closest students perked up and looked at me too. Uh-oh, panic seized me. I was in serious trouble. If Nell knew my identity as the Runar, he would tell people, and there's no knowing what they'd say and do. Suddenly, horrible scenarios began running through my mind. Would Henry still be my best friend? Would I still be able to compete in the tournament? I pictured Felix gloating to me that he'd been cheating all along before going on to win the 10,000 that should have been mine. "Nell, it's not what you..." "Does this mean you're training to play like the Runar?" Nell yelped in excitement, drawing stares from Liam's friends. The sigh of relief I gave probably could have been heard at the other end of the school. Nell hadn't figured out who I was. He simply thought that I was a rabbit fangirl, which I guess was close enough to the truth. Yeah, I'm just trying to play as well as the Runar." Henry gave me a funny look. I plastered my face with what I hoped was a totally innocent "I'm not the Runar" expression. "Wait, really? I've never seen you play like this before. You're not usually, this good. No offence." I shrugged, trying to play it off cool, even though I was panicking on the inside. "I've been studying the Runar's moves." "You should have told me this before, Reyna," Nell said, looking annoyed. "We could have studied together. You know how much I like the Runar. Hey, want to give me a hand on making merch for him? It's a lot to handle for one guy." As Nell continued gushing about the Runar, everyone else shrugged and turned away from us. I heaved another sigh of relief. That had been a close one. Although I was pretty sure I hadn't been in any real danger of being doxxed, who would believe that one of the top prospects in the junior Dayhold tournament was a silver-level student and a Chinese-American girl at that? After Liam's birthday party, I headed back to my dorm room to relax for the rest of the evening and get a full night of sleep. I needed all my energy for tomorrow. I flopped onto my bed and automatically turned on the monitor to call home, but then stopped myself. Bubba and I had had that awful fight last night, and we hadn't made up, and my parents hadn't called me since. My mood soured as I recalled the horrible things my father and I had said to each other, and I struggled to hold back tears. Don't think about that now, I ordered myself. Just focus on tomorrow's game. No matter what kind of mess my family life was in, I couldn't let it affect my gameplay. If I lost the tournament now, I'd lose everything, my family and my dream. I turned the monitor off and lay flat on my back on my bed, staring up at the ceiling. Suddenly, my room, which had always felt like the perfect size, seemed too big for one small gamer. A notification popped up on my monitor screen, surprising me so much I almost fell off my bed. You have one unread message. When I opened the message, I thought it was a last-minute reminder for the rules of tomorrow's team round, but as I read it over, I quickly realized that this was definitely not that. Reyna Cheng. You don't know me, but I know you. I know you're the Runar, and if you don't withdraw from the tournament before the final round, I'll dox you. I can do that without even exposing my own identity. Don't bother trying to track down the source of this message. Nothing you've learned in school can help you get out of this, and you'll never find out who I am, so don't even try. You have 3 days, withdraw, or else.